In this video, I'm going to explain how we get stuck being insecure over hair loss, and most importantly, how to get out of it. We also welcome Matt.
Any guys that are out there that feel the same way, it's just to show, you're not alone. Because when you are going through hair loss, it feels like you're literally the only person.
We're going to use his story as a perfect case study.
So, I mean, obviously you'll see, like, I've still got, a decent amount of hair, really.
Yeah.
So it's been very, very slow. But still to the same point, it's still been on my mind constantly. So I'd probably say
To get insecure about balding, you're going to have to discover it. Let's hear how Matt discovered his hair loss.
I was about to go to my sixth form prom, and I had really long hair at the time. So I remember just getting this haircut, and I remember just hating it. And I remember just sort of looking constantly at the hairline, and it wasn't straight; it was going back a little bit, and I was so self-conscious over it. Every single man in my family is bald. All my uncles, my dad. I always knew it was coming, but it was when I had that haircut. I just remember looking at it, and I was like, that doesn't look like any of my friends' haircut. The thing is, once it's in your head, it's so hard to get it out of your head.
Yeah. And I also want you to remember, as you're listening to Matt's story, don't be judgmental. Studies show that the severity of hair loss, together with age, does not correlate to the distress felt when we're losing our hair. What that means in layman's terms is it doesn't matter if you're going a little bit bald or a little bit bald, it can be a pretty tough time. Pretty much the next thing that hits after that discovery is our minds start racing at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and the anxiety sets in. Now, what do I mean about anxiety? That word gets thrown around all over the place. We're talking about the fear, okay? In a nutshell, if we're feeling anxious, we're worried, we're scared, we're afraid that things might happen. Bad things. So for me, this was instant. Let's hear what Matt was fearful of in relation to his hair loss.
My fear was, if I'm going to be bald, no one's going to like me. I started to go into myself a little bit. Like I wouldn't go to social things. I didn't want to do things outside. Even if it was raining or if it was windy, I didn't want to go for a walk. I didn't go cycling. All these things that I just stopped just because in my mind I was like, oh, if someone sees this, I was even hiding it from my girlfriend at the time.
You might be able to relate to some of that. Basically, what Matt is saying there is, losing his hair, he started to worry about his future. And this is how we begin to get insecure, okay? We worry about the future. What does this mean for me? Like the classics, right? I'm never going to get laid again. What if people notice? What will that mean? All sorts of different thought patterns associated with the anxiety of going bald. You think my life's over. Literally, right? That's defined as catastrophic ways of thinking. You try to mind read, right? When you're going into places, they call this mind reading. You're like, are people looking at me? Can they notice? And then you think, if they do notice, what they must be thinking bad things about me. So you actively try to guess and worry about and think about what all these other people are thinking. It's also a difficult thing to deal with yourself, right? You're being confronted and you don't want to be confronted with this change. So you're trying everything you can do, all these sort of mind tricks to put it to the back of your mind. For some people, this can ramp up slowly. For others, it can hit almost instantly, or maybe a certain event triggers more and more worries. Like, for example, someone just mentioning, hey, dude, oh, I noticed you're also going bald or something like that. And then you're like, oh, no, now people can actually notice. This must be bad. All the alarm bells start going off, right? And then the anxiety ramps up. However it happens, this is the next crucial stage. Now, how do we get stuck in this awful stage?
I noticed it sort of coming back further and further. And what I was doing to compensate it was to bring my hair down further. Oh, the fringe was a godsend, to be honest with you. But I mean, obviously, when it's raining or when it's windy, it was just an absolute nightmare.
Right.
I mean, I was constantly walking with my head down. If anyone's had a fringe before, you know what it's like. As soon as that wind gets underneath that fringe, it's blowing it all up and you're all exposed. And I was so self-conscious of that. That's when I started to look into treatments and things like that. Yeah, looking at hair transplants really. And I remember I was in such a dark place in my life. Just with this whole hair, it was just constantly on my mind. No one knew it because I wouldn't tell anyone because I was always known as the guy who had super thick hair. Like my hair was massive, always long, never had an issue with it, and I just kind of felt like I was hiding it. I remember I was like, this is just on my mind constantly. So I remember messaging a clinic in Manchester, and they were like, yeah, we can certainly help. Bearing in mind, I was 21 at this point, and they were like, we need you to send some photos. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I cannot send photos of my hair. Like, I can't sort of acknowledge it. So I remember just sort of putting it back to the back of my mind. I was like, right, I'm not going to do that now. Started minoxidil. Again, it was sort of an Amazon job. Get it delivered to the house discreetly, make sure no one could see it, make sure the little tubes were on the bottom of the drawer. So, anyone going through my drawers wouldn't see it as well. I was so conscious, I track the delivery, and I'd be like, oh, hopefully, no one's opened it and seen what's actually inside. Such a faff, doing it every single morning, every single night. Over the course of a couple of days, I just have all this dry minoxidil in my head, and it just felt awful. It was like basically pouring a whole tub of gel all over your head. And then at that point, I went on to finasteride, because you read about the side effects and you think, oh God, like, am I going to do that? But the side effect of not having my hair sort of outweighed everything else. So I was like, well, I'm willing to accept, that over,
Yeah.
over not having my hair. So I was on that for about a year and a quarter. I'll be honest, I didn't really see any improvement. Again, I don't know if it was because I knew it wasn't really working for me, or if I had expectations that it was going to do something which it wasn't designed to do. But I felt like it would put me in a worse place, sort of, with my emotional state.
Right.
So after about a year and a quarter, I came off. I came off that, really.
We get stuck here by the use of what the world calls safety behaviors. Matt, of course, was using the fringe, right? He's had this sort of like receding hairline a little bit, and he's like, I need to cover that up. The anxiety has made him deploy these safety behaviors to help him deal with that anxiety, deal with those fears, all these thoughts, all these worries. That was his way of like, right, if I've got this covered, then all these things I'm worried about happening, I can feel a little bit more relaxed that they might not happen. So I can go out and get on with my life, which is, of course, at the end of the day, what we all want to do. Other safety behaviors, of course, there is a plethora of them, ranging from hat wearing, they call it disguising, right? Ruffling all this up, the hair fibers, and a lot of what the hair loss industry offers at the end of the day, it basically offers you a form of safety behavior, ramping all the way up to the meds and to cosmetic surgery. All different ways that we deal with that anxiety. How we get stuck is because when you use these safety behaviors, you are not allowing yourself to question or to confront this fear and anxiety. You are robbing yourself to see the situation from a different perspective. And this is pretty crucial. Let's hear a little bit more about Matt's experience.
Coming out of the shower, towel was always on. No one would ever see me with fully wet hair. It was always go straight to my bedroom, get that blow dried, get the little curlers out, do the little fringe that I used to rock. So the way I used to style it was always like bring it forward and then you like curl it up, so it kind of looked like you got a quiff, which kind of looked okay normally. But as soon as that wind comes, you just look absolutely stupid. And the thing for me is I never wanted to look like I am balding and looking like I'm losing my hair. The thing is with hair loss as well, it's kind of like you don't really know what it looks like, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it was mainly just sort of, covering it up. The hoods was always come up when it was windy. I wouldn't do anything that involved sort of being in the wind, so I completely stopped cycling. A lot of the things were sort of indoors where I could as well. I was using the hairsprays as well, which was just awful, because when you've got a fringe and you've got a hairspray, as soon as that wind goes underneath that fringe, it's pulling that whole thing up, and you're constantly trying to cover it as well. Other things as well. So I would always walk with my head down. The main thing for me hiding it was just trying to avoid those situations in the first place. So I mean, the hairline is, you'll see it there. It's still okay, but it's definitely gone back. It's a very slow sort of process that I've had. It's still mentally sort of drained me as well. It's that first sign that you are aging. That's for me where it is. It's that first sign that, hold on, Matt, you are actually getting older. Another thing for me is the whole dating scene as well. Even though at the time I did have a girlfriend, I think it was always a case of oh, if I go bald, she's going to leave me. The thing is, you look at guys around you and you're constantly sort of analyzing every other guy's hairline and every other guy's hair as well.
Mm.
And you're trying to sort of compare yourself to where they're at as well. It's just constantly on your mind. I've wasted 8, 9 years feeling this way.
Now, if I can share my own experience, of course, you will know perhaps that what I did was sit behind everyone anytime I was sat down. Okay. Often that meant in my university classroom, I just sat behind everyone. We still filming? Yeah. What then happens is I'm comforted, kind of. My anxiety is reduced to a level that I can sort of function in life because I'm like, people aren't noticing my hair loss because I'm sat behind them, because I'm using this safety behavior. Think of the classic with the hat. People aren't calling me out. My life isn't falling apart because I'm wearing this hat and people can't notice my hair loss, right? Therefore, you have nothing to question that reality, okay? You put the hat on because it makes you feel safe and you keep going about your day. But now you start to genuinely believe that all of these things that you are so afraid of aren't happening because you're using this hat, and you get stuck and it becomes literally your belief, the way you see the world. And that is how we get stuck. In Matt's example, okay, don't forget, it was the fringe and the way he styled his hair. We know that this doesn't actually solve and get rid of all these fears and anxieties completely. What it does to varying degrees is essentially puts it to the back of your mind, right? It suppresses it enough so that you can go about your day-to-day activities until you can't, which ultimately comes up in different scenarios, like when you can't wear the hat, when it's super windy outside, right? Think of all these ways that these safety behaviors become compromised at times. We are so afraid now of these anxieties, right? Because we've never questioned them or confronted them and given ourselves a different perspective. They build, right? They grow even stronger. And so what do? Of course, we look for more safety behaviors to try to keep hold of ourselves, right?
I wouldn't do anything that involved sort of being in the wind, so I completely stopped cycling. A lot of the things were sort of indoors where I could as well.
I'm obsessing over it far too much.
These safety behaviors can ramp right up to the point where you completely start avoiding doing things entirely. You're like, if I just stay in my house where no one can see me, then I'll be safe. This then can kind of go one of two ways. You can continue to seek out more and more safety behaviors if you do find yourself in a position where you want to completely get out of this situation. You want to no longer live insecure. You no longer want to live in a way that your insecurity over the hair loss dictates anything that you do in life. This is very achievable, by the way. The only true way is to confront those anxieties, confront those fears. You do this is key, by reducing or ridding yourself of the use of these safety behaviors. How did Matt do this? Let's find out.
So I remember it was a Sunday evening, had the clippers out, and I was just going grade over grade over grade, and instantly I just felt so good and just so confident as well. Like, I can't describe it. The first thing I did was go outside, went for a walk. I mean, it was really windy here where I am, and it was just like, it just felt amazing because I wasn't having to put my head down, I wasn't having to put my hood up. It was just so freeing as well. So it just came to a point where I just had enough of feeling a certain way, and I was just thinking, am I just going to let this carry on for another 8, 9 years till I'm in my mid-30s and rob me of those years as well? Like, I just can't do it anymore because my head was so sort of full of just all this thinking and, oh, I can't go outside because of this, or I'm not going to do that. It just felt like all of that had just gone to one side, and was just clear and thinking of what I'm actually going to do for the next couple of years as well.
You will use the word freeing there. Why do you think you felt that way afterwards?
I think just because I wasn't trying to hide anymore. Sort of the last 8, 9 years, I've always sort of rocked this very sort of long fringe. It wasn't sort of my true self really. So it was just the fact that I didn't have to hide. I didn't have to worry about certain aspects stopping activities that I wanted to do as well. And to be honest, I remember you did one with a guy a couple of years ago, and he said as soon as he shaved his head, he felt so much more masculine as well.
Mm.
And I that hits the nail on the head really.
Yeah.
I just felt like I wasn't hiding. I wasn't kind of the victim to this hair. When I was in those really dark places as well, I just thought my hair was me, and if I didn't have my hair, then I would lose myself. And everything that was important to me as well. To be honest, it just made me feel as sort of half the man I actually was, because I was constantly sort of cowering and hiding from this, hiding from that as well. And as soon as you get rid of that insecurity, it's just like it's so free and doing everything. And
Finally, after getting rid of that fringe that he was using to protect himself, to keep him safe, this safety behavior that was the long fringe, he can go out into his life and collect this new reality, one where he knows he can completely handle it, one that he knows that he doesn't need to hide away that for people to not ridicule him, or for all those other fears he had to not come true. This, my friends, is why the head shave works.
it was a little bit nerve-wracking going into work sort of the first time. I remember I was getting a couple of double takes, and they were sort of asking, "Why have you shaved your head?" And I was like, "Oh, it's been going a little bit," and they were just like, "All right, fair enough." And then they went straight back to work, and it was like nothing had ever happened. But for me, it was this massive big deal that had been on my mind for absolutely ages, and I just kind of felt like, "Sorry, are you not going to sort of ask more questions, or dig a bit deeper? Like, do you not care?"
The true power in this whole head shave thing that we talk about so much is because it takes away your ability to hide your balding. It takes away your ability to use all of these safety behaviors that you've been doing. It forces you out of this little uncomfortable comfort zone that you've built around yourself with all these safety behaviors, and you go out into the world and you challenge them. You challenge this narrative that's been going on and on and on in your mind, and for the first time, you can see a different reality.
My fear was, if I'm going to be bald, no one's going to like me. It was a little bit nerve-wracking going into work sort of the first time, and they were sort of asking, "Why have you shaved your head?" And I was like, "Been going a little bit," and they were just like, "All right, fair enough." And then they went straight back to work, and it was like nothing had ever happened.
That is why it works, and that is how you get unstuck. Now, does that mean you have to only shave your head to feel these things and to not be insecure about it anymore, insecure about hair loss and not feel anxious? Absolutely not, mate. The head shave works so well because it's just like in one big thing, you're kind of forced into it, okay? But it's literally the same as just chucking that hat in the bin and going out into the world. Essentially, you do the same thing. The key is to do it in a way that you can actually do it. What I mean by that is, say you're rocking that balding hair that I was rocking before, right? And I just said to you, "Mate, just take your hat off and go outside." That might feel huge and too big so that you don't do it. Or maybe you do, but you just spend the whole day walking around with your eyes glued to the floor because you're so terrified about people looking at you weird or whatever, right? Or you don't even want to look at yourself, right? You don't want to confront what you see in the mirror. That's not going to work. But the head shave now, today, because it's such an acceptable thing and it's so convenient, you can do it yourself, and all the other things that we talk about, it's just a really convenient way, to be honest, of doing this thing that makes you not use these safety behaviors.
So I'm so happy that I've done it. Honestly, I can't describe sort of the relief. And if there's anyone out there who sort of feels that way, even if sort of your hair loss isn't at a certain point yet, you know, just give it a go. And the most attractive quality in someone is their confidence, really. And if you're, yeah, I might, you might have okay hair when it's styled a certain way, but it's the way that makes you feel as well. So I'd rather have less hair and sort of be confident and do the things that I want to do in my life, because life is too short to worry as well. So,
and that's it. Like, this is really the way. This is the way to get unstuck. This is the way to not feel that fear anymore. And I needed to talk about this because I don't want there to be this confusion that the head shave is this just like magic antidote, because the guy who shaves his head but then puts the hat straight back on and then gets stuck wearing the hat, let's just be real. He's still insecure. He's still anxious. It's also a reason why some guys will shave it off and they don't feel amazing instantly. Usually the reason for that, or often the reason for that, is because there's still these questions in their head. How will this certain person react? Or what's going to happen the next time I go on a night out? okay, and I'm around people my age and they see this for the first time, there's still those anxieties bubbling around in there that they are yet to confront. If at the top of your list perhaps is like, how am I going to look, or what's my head shave like? If that's the top of your sort of anxiety list, straight away when you do it, you're going to get that ticked off straight away. So that might be a huge part of the relief that you feel. But for others, and I think this is why for some it can take time, there's still deeper anxieties or further things that they need to check off that list. How are the parents going to react? What are people going to say in work? All of those things. The magic antidote and the way to get unstuck, the way to never feel insecure about this hair loss stuff again, is to not hide away from those fears and anxieties with the use of these different safety behaviors. It's to confront them. And I know it sounds scary, okay, but listen, that truly is the way to do it. And I hope this helps some of you. I hope this has given you a slightly different perspective on what it means for us as men when we're losing our hair to not only get insecure, but stay insecure and feel stuck. And I hope it's given you a few ideas about how you can also get unstuck. Now, I want to say, if you want me to literally walk you through each step, bit by bit, to the point that is completely manageable for you, no stone left unturned, then check out my course. It's linked below. I've called it the Bald Cafe Way. 5 years in the making. Goes into all of this in a lot more detail, step by step. Okay, this is how you go from insecure to I found the cure. Okay, this is how you go from stuck to stud. Thank you, Matt, for sharing your experience here at Bald Cafe. Thank you for watching. I'm going to continue to do everything I can to help you lads never feel insecure about this hair loss stuff again. Own it. Get out into your life. Start confronting those fears and anxieties. And when you do, and when you start winning again, okay, without hiding away, when you give all of yourself to the world, you're able to see it from that completely different perspective. Never to worry about this hair loss stuff ever again. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.